Okay, we're here for the next installment of our video series, and we have our very own young Antonio Banderas, Ricardo. Ricardo's known informally as the most attractive member of Talk.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Well, I knew. Rick is our head of growth marketing, so he heads up the team that's responsible for SEO, SEM/paid media, copywriting, CRO, and analytics, which is it's a fully remote team, that team. So I guess Rick wanted to focus this discussion today more on that topic around CRO and conversions. But before we get into that, could you just take 1 or 2 minutes to give everyone a quick background on what you've done? I guess A, where you live, because that whole all around the world is always an interesting topic. A, where you live, and B, what you've done in your career so far.
Sure. So thank you for the introduction and the compliments, first and foremost. I wasn't expecting that. So talking a little bit about myself. So I'm originally from Portugal. I'm currently living in Brazil, more specifically in São Paulo. I've moved here in 2016, so it's almost 4 years now. I started. So my background is very technical. Okay, so I have a master's in computer science, and I worked on that area up until 2016, just prior to moving here to São Paulo. However, my interest and passion for digital marketing as a whole, it's something that started out in roughly 2009, late 2009, initial 2010. So it started out mostly as a hobby. Okay, so I started playing a little bit with websites. I created my first WordPress website around that time, so 2009. Shortly after, I discovered the power of digital marketing, more specifically SEO, which I fell in love immediately. So it was love at first sight, I would say.
The return on investment drug.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, I just started playing with it. I read a lot about it. I always got a high interest in SEO, more specifically. And so I've applied everything that I've learned throughout the years on my personal projects. But eventually, moving forward to 2016, I decided that, well, even though I liked programming and I liked what I did before moving to digital marketing, but I knew that I wanted to turn my hobby into my profession. Basically, I just wanted to shift my career and move a little bit away from computer science and more into digital marketing. And so, yeah, I've always been really interested in all topics, SEO initially, but then eventually I discovered that there was much more to it besides SEO. So I played a little bit with affiliate marketing. Eventually, I started looking into CRO, which is the topic of this call today. And so eventually, I just touched on all fronts of digital marketing, and that leads me to Talk eventually, right? 2017, I started my adventure here at Talk, at this amazing company. Only good things to say, honestly. Really.
You can say bad things if you want. That's okay.
No, I tried to think about it, but I'll be really, really honest. I really love everything that I've done here. It has been a really amazing experience, and I really look forward to have many more other enriching experiences here. Anyways, So I joined Talk in 2017, May 2017, and ever since I've worked with digital marketing, initially as an SEO analyst. So my only focus was SEO. And then eventually things change a little bit back in last year. So January, February 2019, things change. And eventually I took on the role of growth marketing or performance marketing team lead, which is the position that I hold today. That's pretty much what I've been doing ever since. So essentially, what I do is, like you said, I manage all those teams. So SEO, SEM, copywriting teams, CRO as well, which is a little bit is also included somewhat in the SEO team. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more to say about it, but to keep it short,
yeah, we'll get into the juicy. So CRO is something that it's one of the beloved acronyms that digital marketers have. Stands for conversion rate optimization, and it's something that initially very few businesses, when we start talking to a business, A, they don't know what conversion rate optimization is, and B, it's something that they're not focused on in their organization, which I think is really sad, because I feel like they're missing such big opportunities to make more money essentially out of their business or their operation. So can you just explain at its core what conversion CRO, what is it, and what are the core elements behind it essentially?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So yeah, in a nutshell, a CRO or conversion rate optimization, it's all about improving your website in order to turn more visitors into customers. Okay, so to put it very simply, that's what it is. Okay, whatever we do to our website, we want to improve it, and we want to basically get more business out of it, right? If it's an e-commerce, I want to get more sales. If it is a B2B, I want to have more businesses working with me, or if it's a SaaS, I want more subscribers to my service. So whatever that is really important for our business to grow. So that's the whole concept of CRO. Okay, so turning more visitors into customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the thing is, just touching on what you were saying, the thing that it's really important is that having traffic to the website is essential. Obviously, we know that, right? If we don't have any visitors to the website, we cannot really do any sales. That's just logic. The thing is that whether you use, for example, a paid media advertising channel, or you use other strategies and approaches like SEO, the thing is that getting more traffic to your website is not necessarily easy or cheap, right? It always involves some effort, especially if we're talking about SEO, which we'll touch on a different call. But SEM, as we know, we are paying basically per click, right? So whenever someone clicks on the ad and lands on our website, there is a price that we need to pay for that, to have that user browsing our page. And so the thing is that CRO, basically, we try to make more with the same. And what I mean by this is we are not necessarily trying to improve the traffic that gets to our websites, even though that's ideal, and we all want that. But what we really want to do is try to get as much as possible out of the traffic that we already have on our website, okay? And the thing with CRO is that we control everything on our website, right? I mean, all the user experience on our website is of our responsibility, in the sense that we have full control on the elements that the pages have, the content, etc. Whereas if we touch on SEO, for example, then we all of a sudden we know that we no longer have that tight control over the how the users get to our website, right? So we rely on third-party platforms to do it for us, right? Because we rely on Google to drive that traffic to the website. And so CRO is really important because it's something that we have control of. It's something that deals with human behavior, which is something that hasn't really changed a lot throughout the centuries. Mainly, we are still susceptible to fear, love, all those basic and so important drivers of our behavior, right? And also another important factor in CRO is that we can do a change today on the website and see the impact right away. Okay.
Whereas not like SEO. Yeah.
Exactly. And other channels, even though SEM, for example, it's we can get traffic right away, but once again, we need to pay for it. And the moment that we see paying, then the traffic just goes away as well. So it's highly dependent on how much we are paying. And SEO, as you said, is a slower game, and there is not really a magic formula to get traffic overnight, right? It's a slower game. We need to be patient. We need to work and put some effort into continuously optimizing and improving our websites in order to get more traffic. So CRO is really, I would say that for me, it's really one of the most important, if not the most important thing that we can do right now to improve our businesses and have an immediate impact on it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely an opportunity that I think the really big players, like the big online businesses or businesses that are really advanced in their digital strategies, they're definitely doing really well. But I feel like tier 1.5 down to tier 12 of everyone else is really still got a long way to go in terms of what they can do in this space. And I guess there are a lot of different ways you can go about it, but what do you see as the basic framework, the basics of CRO, or the basic framework that a small or a medium business could do?
Mm-hmm. Just to maybe to get a step back just a little bit, just to provide some clear idea on how much, on the power of CRO, okay, and what it can do to our business.
Yep.
So we didn't really touch on the concept of conversion, but essentially conversion is really just, for example, as we said, turning visitors into customers, or trying to get people to take a specific action, whatever that may be. It can be just clicking on the phone number and call us, or just submit a form. So whatever that is really important for our business, we can consider it as a conversion, right? And just to give you a brief idea of its power, let's assume that you have just 1% conversion. Okay, so out of 100 visitors to our website, one of them is turning into a customer, right? And then let's say that with CRO, we are able to improve the conversion rate from 1 to 2%. And all of a sudden, it may seem magic almost, but all of a sudden we have just doubled the revenue of the business, right? Just to give you some numbers and to have a little bit of perception, and having just an improvement of a single point in terms of percentage, it's something that it's attainable. And as you can see, we can just double the revenue of a business almost overnight, right? And it does seem to be magic, but indeed the power of CRO is there. And it's something that we need to take into account. Basically, whenever we start a digital campaign, we really need to have CRO up there on top of our priorities, or at least really close to it, because it's really, really powerful. Yeah. So as you were saying, as you were asking about the basics of CRO, so I guess that even though we don't really know, so if I just talk with someone that has never had an experience with CRO, has no idea of what it is, I can assure you that you already know much more than you think. Okay. And to give you just a quick example, let's assume that you are on Amazon, okay, and you are looking to buy, I don't know, trousers, okay? And let's say that you have two options, or at least you've narrowed it to two options, and then you have the first option, which has 5-star ratings, but has only 2 reviews, okay? And on the other hand, you have another product which has, let's say, 300 reviews, and it's a 4-star rated product, right? Well, immediately, even though you're not a statistician, right? You've not studied it, and most of us haven't really studied any of this. But the reality is that you can immediately assume that, okay, so we have a 5-star product which has only 3 reviews, and then we have the other one which has not 5 stars, it's 4 stars, but has much more reviews, right? And the thing is here is that you really need to understand the power of the sample size, and this is something that intuitively we know. Okay, we don't really need to study this to understand that perhaps the 4-star rated product is the one that we should go with, because the other one just have too few reviews to be significant, right, for our decision. And so immediately we understand that, okay, so all of a sudden, if I start a little bit and I think about it, this makes sense, right? And then we can start to think more critically about our websites and come up with ideas, okay? CRO is really about having ideas.
So you're saying use the reviews that you see online as a funnel for ideas or an idea generator for changes to make on the website?
It's just to give you an example that intuitively we know already some things beforehand, so we don't really need to go online and look for best practices, you know, or CRO recommendations, which there are a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's just, you just look at your website, okay? You come up with ideas, which is, you know, even though CRO is really a data-driven process, and we want to make it as scientific as possible, because at the end of the day, we are going to run experiments, and the data will tell us what is the winner, okay? Or what is the version that will lead to more conversions, okay, to put it simply. So the process to go about it, and really we don't really need to overcomplicate this, okay? So you can just create a spreadsheet, you start collecting some ideas, you can look at your website, for example, or you can look at your competitors and look what they are doing, what they have on their websites, okay? And immediately we can start collecting some ideas. And it can be your own ideas, it can be your colleagues' ideas, your boss's ideas. So you just, whatever those ideas are, you just go ahead and you add them to that spreadsheet, okay? A simple one. Maybe you can just have a column with the title of the idea, then a small description, and then you can have another column with like the owner of the idea or the person that came up with that idea. And then you can just, there are several frameworks actually that will help us to organize and kind of define what are the ideas that we should be testing right away, okay, or prioritizing the ideas. And there are some frameworks out there. One of the most famous ones is called the ICE framework, ICE. So it stands for impact, confidence, and effort. Okay. And basically, impact is, let's say, that you have this idea of changing, I don't know, the pictures of a product. Okay, so you are looking to replace the current ones with high quality pictures, photos of the product. So you can, from a scale of 1 to 10, for example, you can rate it. Okay, so I assume that having better pictures, higher quality pictures of a product will have a bigger impact on the sales. Then let's say I rate it as an 8. Okay, on the impact column. And then on the confidence, you pretty much just, once again, from a score from 1 to 10, you just rate it, what is your level of confidence that this implementation will actually lead to better results. And once again, you can go ahead and say, well, I'm pretty confident that having high quality pictures of my products will lead to more sales. So let's say that I have a 9 or 10, okay? And then finally, the last metric is the effort. And pretty much the effort is measured by, how much time and effort you need to put into this experiment, into this idea to implement it, okay? And so let's say that you have 100 products on your e-commerce store, okay? Then obviously that you're not going to take high quality pictures for all of those products right away. Perhaps you want just to test with a few of them. So you would rate, once again, from 1 to 10 the effort that it would require. Okay, so let's say I just pick a product, a single product, right now to run a test. So let's say that the effort is like a 2 or a 3. Okay, and so the idea here is that even though these scores, they are pretty subjective, okay, and they are, but the idea here is to be consistent, okay. So it's not really about being really able to tell the difference between a score of 8 and a 9, but really you want to just be consistent with the way that you are giving out these scores, okay. And at the end, you can just, for example, you sum the scores on all of these 3 metrics, and you come up with the final score for each idea, okay? And then you can just rank them from, the ones with the highest scores to the ones with the lowest scores. And you can just start working with the ones at the top, okay? Ideally, you want to start with those that have a lower effort to it, okay? Because you really want to be as efficient as possible with this process, okay? Because the reality is that most of the tests will end up as either inconclusives or as failures, okay? So the goal here is really to test efficiently. So you don't really want to spend a lot of time implementing those tests, and you want to, make them test as fast as possible, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is, I would say that this is pretty much the very, very basic terms, the way that you could go about it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that you have several ways where you can just collect data and ideas on how to do this, okay? So as I said, you can just go ahead and just list your own ideas or your colleagues' ideas. That's fine. You just go ahead and add them to the spreadsheet. You can just, I don't know, you have an idea and you can just Google it to see if anyone has ever run a test with that idea and see what was the result. However, a word of caution here is that even though a test was successful for someone, that doesn't really mean that it will necessarily work for you as well, okay? But once again, that may give you some information and some data to work on. Then you have Google Analytics, which is, it's really essential to everything that we do digitally nowadays. You really cannot do any digital marketing without Google Analytics or platforms like it. But even though there are some platforms out there, there's Adobe Analytics and some alternatives, but Google Analytics is by far, for me at least, is the best one. It's free, so there's no reason not to use it, basically. And then you have other platforms that will help you collect data, such as Hotjar, Crazy Egg, and all those tools. Even though we'll not be exploring these tools on this call, perhaps we'll leave it to another call another time. But these are all sources of information, sources of data that you should use to just come up with more ideas, basically. Okay.
Yep. So basically, in your view, Rick, the idea is that you need to create a list of, like you said, a hypothesis or an idea, essentially. Like, create a list of ideas that may or may not lead to an improvement in the rate of conversion on your website. You then use something like an ice metric or something like that to rank and order, or rank and sort, or prioritize those ideas, and then you implement them. And I think that ranking, that ice piece, is really critical, because it means that you're not going and spending 100 hours working on something that may only yield a small incremental piece of growth. And it's really important to consider the effort that goes into something in terms of effort and reward.
Exactly.
Reward, that whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the elements that we didn't really get into more specifically is that the process that we use, or the approach that we use on CRO, which is essentially the backbone of the CRO approach, is really the A/B testing. Okay. So like you mentioned, so we start out with the ideas, we list them, we rank them. One step that I didn't mention, but it's also important to specify during this process, is that you also want to create the hypothesis behind each idea. Okay. So basically, if you are going to implement something, right, or do a change on a website, you need to explain why you are doing it and what you expect to be the result of doing it, right? That can be getting more clicks on the booking widget, or getting more sales, or getting more form submissions, whatever that is. There is always an intent, right? There is always a goal behind it. And then you should also, along with that, you should also specify what is the metric that you are going to look at to determine whether that test was successful or not, right? So if you are measuring, let's say you have an idea where you just want to make a submit button of a form bigger for whatever reason, right? And you want to test whether that leads to more form submissions or not. Then you should have a metric that is measuring that the number of clicks that you have on that you get on that button, to actually compare against the original version, right? So that's really important. Is always keep in mind that you really need to identify what is the metric that you are going to use to measure whether that test was successful or not. Okay. And then obviously, like I said, A/B testing, that's really the way to go. Okay. So you have the original version. So you have the website, the page as it is. And if the treatment version, okay, or the challenger version, whatever you want to call it, which is pretty much a copy of the original version, but with the change that you want to test. Okay. And here I would also I would also issue a word of caution. Try to do single tests, a single variable testing, okay? Instead of starting out with a bunch of changes at once, okay? Because if the test is successful, then if you are testing several things at once, then you don't really know what exactly led to that result, right? So you really want to just focus on one single change at a time, okay? And just test that single change on that page, okay? Because at the end, you know exactly if that change resulted in more conversions or whatever you are measuring, and or not, right?
And it can be
So
so
that's
hard.
really essential.
It can be so, like, for someone who's a business owner or a marketer or someone who's really results hungry. I sort of liken or share some familiarities with this. Is the temptation to just test everything and do everything all at once is so strong. But what you're really explaining here is that it's so critical to have a systematic, step-by-step approach or a roadmap to developing the best possible result. And really, that roadmap should never end. You're always testing, but you're testing in a systemized, step-by-step process rather than running 10 or 15 or 20 different things at once. That's going to yield so much confusion and inaccurate data.
Yeah, absolutely. I would even go ahead and say that you really need to figure out what you should not test. Okay, I think that's the challenge. This is not a game of addition. It's a game of subtraction, in the sense that if you start out with 100 ideas, okay, potentially some of them are pretty good. Others probably they won't really result in anything significant or any change at all to your business, in terms of revenue. And so the challenge sometimes is really about trying to just put on the side the ones that probably are not really going to be the best choices to test right away. And once again, this is really crucial. What I just mentioned about just ranking your tests, identify the ones with the lowest effort and possibly with the highest impact, and then starting out with those first. And a good example with that is, for example, headlines. Headlines are probably the single most important element on a web page. Okay. And the effort to test different variations of a headline or unique value propositions or unique selling propositions. And so the effort in testing different variations of that unique selling proposition is very, very low, right? However, if that headline is really aligned with the motivations of the users and the visitors to that website, that web page, then it can really translate in having much more sales at the end. Okay, and this is just a very quick example and an easy one that it's really easy for us to test and basically confirm whether that version is better than the original one or not.
Yeah. Awesome. And do you have any closing thoughts just in terms of CRO in general, other than please everyone do it? Do you have any closing thoughts on or takeaways that you want to leave with people in terms of, you really need to do this or don't do this, or please focus on this?
Yeah. I think that once again, CRO, at least for me, is really up there in terms of priorities. Okay. Yeah. So if you have a website, you really need to start doing CRO. Okay. Because otherwise you are just leaving money on the table, literally. Okay. And I think that if we take the actual context that we are living in, right? This pandemic, I think that it is exposing how fragile pure brick and mortar businesses are, you know. And I think that if you're a business owner and you are just relying your business on the offline experience, so to speak, so on the foot traffic coming to your store and doing, you know, the sales directly with the person, I think that this is the best time definitely to start looking into going digital, basically. If you already have a website, then it's time for you to really double down on your efforts, okay, to make sure that the experience, the user experience on your website is really the best that you can deliver, okay. And the good thing about this is that for you to completely change the layout of your store, of your brick and mortar store, like the financially speaking, the you know the price or the you know the financial investment that you need to do to change a brick and mortar store versus just creating a website and investing on your website is so different, right? But the reality is that you can just invest a fraction of what you would invest on your brick and mortar store. You can just invest that money, a fraction of that, into implementing you know, or improving your website, and you'll see that the ROI, you know, the return on that investment will probably turn out to be way bigger than, let's say, just investing on your brick and mortar store. So I really think that it's no longer an option for business to just stay and rely on the offline experience. And I really think that this situation, this pandemic, has really exposed how fragile we are and how these businesses, you know, how fragile they are as well. And, you know, basically everyone knows how hard it has been for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Of course. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I know time is precious, so I don't take it lightly that you made the time for this call. We'll get it online soon, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.